Dear friend, I apologize for the length of time between letters. To be honest, it's been a fairly uneventful autumn so far. Not as many travelers coming through the inn, and plenty of work to keep me busy, what with harvest going on. You'll recall I was at war with the groundhogs in my garden. That pitched battle has been perhaps the most exciting thing for the past few weeks. I can't say for certain if I'm winning or losing. Sister is back from a short journey down to Trawbridge to pick up some supplies. She said the mood in the city is a little apprehensive. Apparently, there's some going-ons in the capital that have folks on edge. Honestly, not much bothers us up here in the north. No one really pays much attention to a little inn in a village with no name. But I'm finally putting pen to paper because I had a conversation with a young woman who was passing through recently that ended up being more impactful on me than I could have anticipated. The Inn at the Edge of Greenwood, Chapter 4, Courage Buried Deep. As you approach the inn at the end of your day of travel, it is probably around 5:30 in the evening right now. The sun has just started to begin its descent, just that very first bit of the shadows getting longer. And it has been a long day of travel. And you see in this small town that you have made your way to, the area of respite, which is the inn at the Edge of Greenwood. It is a 2-story building with a stables attached to it, white paneled wooden walls with a fieldstone base running along the bottom, and a large wooden door with a small wooden sign that has a pine tree painted on it, beckons to you.
Well, this looks like as good a place as any. And she goes inside.
The door opens, and you are met with the sights and sounds and smells of a relatively standard small tavern. There is a fireplace off to the left-hand wall, a handful of rugged wooden tables and wooden chairs that dot the interior of a fairly high-ceilinged main room with arched beams. And because of the height of this ceiling, there is a sense of openness and airiness, and the music that's playing from a bard in the corner and the jovial conversation of the patrons fills the room. You look off to your right, and there is a small coat rack. And then kind of on the right-hand side, but against the back wall, you see the bar proper. Behind it, a young man with a busy but pleasant expression on his face is working behind the bar, pouring ales, taking orders, cleaning glasses.
I go to the coat rack, hang my cloak up. It's a nice night blue cloak. Then I make my way to the bar, sit down, put my hand up. Excuse me.
The bartender turns and sees you, and he's like, "Oh, yes, one moment if you would." And as he turns and sees you, could you give a better description of what he sees?
Sure. He sees a human girl looking to be in her late 20s, wavy brown hair, and wearing leather armor that has accents of like dark blue and with some jewel slots like embedded into like the crooks, the nooks and crannies of her armor, and but a couple of them are missing or displaced now, and yeah, it looks like this armor has seen better days.
After a moment, the bartender finishes pouring a drink for another patron at the other end of the bar and walks over to you with a smile. "Welcome. Is this your first time at the inn?"
This is, yes.
"Glad to have you. Can I get you something to drink?"
Absolutely. Bourbon?
Bourbon.
Something hard.
Yeah, let me You're going to have to give me a quick second. I'll be right back. And he kind of turns and disappears around the corner through a small doorway back to some larder kitchen. Comes back a moment later with 2 bottles in his hand, one quite a bit smaller than the other. And he kind of comes up to you and says, "I've got a couple different things here. I have a standard bourbon. I also have this, and I don't want to assume, but it is a slightly more expensive, but this has been aged by the elves."
She leans in. I'll take the aged by the elves.
I thought you might. And he goes over and pops open the smaller of the 2 bottles. It is a busy room with a lot of smells. And yet, as soon as the cork comes out of this small brown bottle, you can smell the very stinging but pleasant, smooth aroma of a almost magical bourbon. The drinks of the elves are legendary. He pours a small glass of it, a little bit larger than a shot glass, and brings it back over to you and sets it down in front of you.
Perfect. She takes a sip. Those elves, they know. And she puts it down.
I'm afraid it's been some time since we've had any trade with them, but I've kept that in special reserve.
That makes me feel like a special lady.
Well, anytime there's a first timer in the inn, I like to extend them every courtesy. I've got a moment to chat here in a second, if you do as well.
I've got nothing but the night.
All right, give me a moment or two. And he kind of disappears for a minute, just kind of in and amongst the crowd, taking care of the last couple of drink orders and setting some food down in front of others. One gentleman comes up who seems to be paying his tab for the night and taking off after spending a couple nights at the inn. So he settles up with him, and then after a moment, he kind of comes back and leans against the bar a little bit. And he's like, "Oh, it's a fairly busy night. We're a little out of the ways, and we're not usually this busy, but it's a good night." What are you passing through, I assume?
Yeah. Heading south.
Where are you coming from?
Innaport.
Oh, I've been there once or twice. It's beautiful.
It sure is.
It's almost as cold as up here, though.
Yeah.
What brings you through the area? What you said you're heading south. What purpose?
I've heard about something. Some ancient ruins that I would much like to explore. Ancient ruins always have those tales about, mysterious crystals to collect and spells and arcane artifacts that are beyond imagining. I haven't quite come across any in a long time.
He kind of leans in just a little bit more as you begin to tell tales of crystals and artifacts, and he kind of catches himself for a moment and then says, "You're gonna have to forgive my curiosity. So I run the inn here, and I see a lot of people come through, but it's not often that someone comes through with a good story to tell. It seems like you might have one or two."
I might have a couple, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's another glass of that bourbon in it for you.
I'll be a good lady and pay for it regardless, but I can spare you, tale. Let's see. So, I was once on an island. I was a prisoner for some time, and I found my way into meeting these people, the adventuring sort. You're familiar, I'm sure, just coming through, and I decided to join up with them because I thought one of them was, the man they were with was kind of cute. And, yeah, I came with them for a while. He adopted a goblin. It was the weirdest thing.
Goblin?
Mm-hmm. He named him and everything. I think he had some parental issues when he was in his upbringing. Not the goblin, the man who adopted it.
Looking to right some wrongs that were done to him, perhaps.
Maybe, or maybe he was looking to right some wrongs that he performed. The people I was traveling with, they were an interesting sort, variety, really. They did unimaginable things. They almost single-handedly stopped an entire orc raid on a town. It was incredible. I couldn't help but after that feel, incomparable.
Sounds like the tales of heroes. There's few of them left nowadays.
Indeed. I wasn't brave enough to be one of the heroes. The night after I confessed to him, I took off. Because he wanted to keep doing brave things, and I wasn't brave at the time.
Well, you say at the time, and forgive me for being forward, but judging by your outfit and the way you carry yourself, I wouldn't take you as anything but someone with a lot of confidence.
It's something that's been coming with age.
Where did you go after you left that party?
Well, let's see. After that, I went to this island kingdom for a while. I met some of the nicest people. I ended up in another party again. They had enlisted me as their thief. Don't worry, I'm not going to steal from you.
Oh, well,
but
thank you.
I've always had a talent for being undetected at the right time. You're awfully curious. What have you been up to? Have you always ran this tavern?
Truth be told, I have. My father owned it, and so I grew up here. And I mean, I had my ambitions and my dreams as a very young man. But I kind of fell, to be completely honest, I fell in love with it here. And there's something about being here and keeping this space for people such as yourself. It's necessary in a different way. Don't get me wrong, the killing of orcs and dragons and all those things, we need people like yourself, but those people need a place to sleep at night.
It's very true. It's an honorable profession. What did you dream of?
Oh, goodness.
If you don't mind my asking.
No, it's a fair trade. Questions for questions. I always fancied myself being some sort of dabbler in magic, and I had heard of wizards who studied lore and legend and history and learned to do incredible things, and there's not much about me innately that is incredible, but I figured I might be able to learn. Life just didn't work out that way, and that's okay.
I mean, I was never much of a magic user myself, but I did learn a couple spells.
Really?
Yeah, if you apply yourself, I'm not going to say it's easy. It does take a long time to learn. Hold on. And she ruffles through, like, one of the satchels on her side, and she brings out this, like, small scroll. It's, like, 6 inches long, tied up. You know, maybe I'm feeling generous tonight, or maybe it's the bourbon. It's the fire in my belly, I tell you what. But if you can learn how to read this, you can learn how to cast a spell. It's not going to be the most useful thing in the world, but it can help out in a trick or a pinch. Maybe stop a brawl fight.
He very carefully reaches his hands out and takes the scroll from you and holds it as if he's holding almost like a newborn child with such care. What does it do?
It allows you to do simple tricks. You can make your voice louder. You can turn your eyes different colors. You can even make eggs and throw it at people, and they won't really crack or anything. But it's a tricky spell.
I can't afford a spell scroll.
Listen, no, this one's on me.
And he kind of reaches behind him and grabs the small bottle and sets it on the counter and goes, and this is on me.
Fair enough. And she slides the scroll forward.
And he takes it carefully, puts it in his apron, gingerly, gives it a nice pat. He kind of collects himself after a moment and then looks at you and goes, what other things have you learned?
I learned how to shock someone with my hands.
What? Have you ever had to use that?
I have.
All right, I know we're already even and I'll be in your debt, but I would love that story.
Let's just say, during that orc attack that I mentioned earlier, one of them had pushed me down to the ground. I was cornered, really, by actually several of them. And it was the craziest thing. The rest of my party had lost sight of me. I was pushed down to the ground. I looked up and I saw these red eyes staring at me, filled with bloodlust, wielding an axe, ready to bring it down on me. And I had just I had never been able to use it before, and just in that moment, as he brought the axe down, I grabbed his wrist and let out a shock of electricity from me, almost like I'd been spending months learning how to do it, and it just happened. It was thrilling. And then someone shot that orc with an arrow into the head, and I survived.
Well, I'm glad you did. That's remarkable that you could channel lightning through your hands.
I wouldn't call it lightning as much as more heavy static shock.
Enough to stop the orc, though.
Enough to save my life, yes.
Oh, sorry, one moment. And you see someone across the tavern is calling for him at the moment. He steps away, heads off, and you're left there with the very nice bottle of Elvish bourbon for a few moments.
I'm going to just like, it's the coolest thing, really. Just like real quick, just pour some, cap it, and place it exactly where it was.
After a moment, he comes back and leans against the bar again and kind of begins polishing some glasses and drying them off that have just come out of the kitchen. Still keeping his hands busy while he talks to you. Well, I am in your debt for the scroll and for the story. Afraid not in your debt enough to make room and board free, but if you do wish to stay the night, I would love to hear more about where you're going. You mentioned some ruins.
Well, I can pay for room and board. I can afford that. I'm heading to this place called, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called the Dela Garden.
I've not.
Yeah. It's apparently this ancient ruin of thousands and thousands of years ago. And I keep hearing whispers about it. Like, I don't know. Feel like I'm drawn to it almost. Have you ever heard of the Black Flame?
No.
This is silly, I'm sorry. And she kind of leans back in her chair a little bit, puts her hand in her hair, kind of pushes it back.
Well, does the Black Flame have anything to do with Chenadine or Stith?
I don't think so. I don't know, it's something that I keep seeing. You know when you feel like you've seen something and you keep seeing it, or you feel like you've seen it before? Maybe I've seen it my entire life.
Like something from a dream coming back to your eyes?
Yeah. I heard from a trader in Innkeeper that there's these relics that carry the same symbol of the Black Flame. I don't know, maybe I'm too old for adventuring, but I don't think I can stop before I go see it. I'm compelled, you know?
I think we all have a moment where we hear something or see something and we feel a pull.
Like a calling.
A calling.
Yeah.
It's funny, for me, that call told me to stay home. For you, it's drawing you south.
She eyes the scroll that she gave you. Maybe you have a different calling.
Maybe.
But either way, I don't know, it's silly. I just feel like I should go see it. And I heard it's a rigorous journey, but some people just can't stay still. I think I'm one of those people.
Well, depending on how far south your journey takes you, be careful of the southern wilds. There's lots of foul creatures, and it's a lawless country. We're lucky that Realm Shield keeps most of them at bay on our borders, but you hear stories.
Yeah, I heard about the Realm Shield actually. Yeah, brave protectors.
One or two of them have come through. They're an interesting group.
They sure are. Uncommon.
But no, if you're heading south, you might also consider heading through the Saints' Preserve. The paladins there are not friendly, but they will give you safe passage as far as they can.
Well, that's really all you need when you're an adventurer.
That's fair. I'm afraid I've got some more cleanup to do. here before the end of the night. Here, and he kind of reaches underneath and pulls out a little ledger and has like keys on it as well. And he kind of pulls a key off and makes a mark and slides it over to you. So your room will be at the top, at the end of the hallway, room 14. Yeah, if you need anything at night, there's a small bell that can call one of us. And if I don't get to talk to you before the morning, I hope you have a good rest.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was nice chatting with you. I'm sorry I never caught your name.
Oh, you can just call me the Innkeeper. Everyone else does.
Thank you, Mr. Innkeeper. By the way, sorry, rude of me. My name's Francesca.
He kind of walks back and puts his hand out, shakes your hand. It's good to meet you, Francesca.
Good to meet you too.
Walks off with a smile, and you see him throughout the rest of the evening kind of working here and there, coming in and out of the kitchen, serving drinks. You know, he doesn't ignore you by any stretch of the imagination. A couple other polite words are exchanged throughout the evening, but before too long, it is later in the night, and most people have either drunk themselves to the point of needing some assistance out the door, or have left of their own accord, or taken their room for the night.
Fran, by the way, will have stayed drinking the entire time.
That bottle is very delicious.
But not bottomless, unfortunately.
Not bottomless, and she is a very experienced person, but it's strong stuff, and it's a good night. After a good night's rest, the morning greets you. The sun and the fresh morning air coming through the small window that your room has. You can hear birds chirping outside. It's a nice, peaceful start to the day.
Headaches. All headaches. All headaches
Some
all
headaches.
day.
Yep.
She sleeps in probably an hour and a half past like when she's supposed to.
So it's late morning by the time that Francesca descends the stairs. As you come into the tavern, the main tavern room, there is no one else there at the moment, although you can hear some people moving about in the kitchen, a couple different voices as people are preparing meals.
I lean over the bar, my headache's cleared, and I yell out, "Mr. Innkeeper!"
After a moment, kind of a little bit older, gray-haired woman kind of pokes her head out of the kitchen. He's out back in the garden at the moment.
Well, that's fine. Could you deliver him a message?
Oh, of course.
Sure. Would you just tell him that, even though you have your heart set on this place, don't forget that your heart's not locked in one place. Wow, that accidentally rhymed. Just tell him to keep studying that scroll.
She gives you a very confused look. Right, okay. Hearts are locked in place. Study a scroll. Will do.
Yes, you can do that. You can do that, right? Okay. Do you want me to write it down? Write it down?
If you have a moment, dear,
Yeah,
might be a good
I can.
idea.
Parchment?
Not on me, I'm afraid.
It's okay. I have some on me. She writes down what she said.
Okay.
And hands it to her.
She takes it. Thank you very much. Have a good trip.
Right. Thank you. It was a pleasure. By the way, lovely place.
Thank you.
And she heads out.
And before too long, Francesca finds herself on the road. Pretty soon, the inn at the Edge of Greenwood, disappearing over a hill behind her. I'm in disbelief at the gift Francesca gave me. An actual magical scroll. One I can study and learn from and perhaps one day use? My hands are shaking even as I write this, thinking about it. This is a boon I never thought I would receive. Francesca was very humble, but I get the feeling there's a lot more to her than she let on. This underground city she's looking for sounds dangerous, but she didn't seem worried at all. More curious. Curiosity. It's contagious. And now mine is piqued as well. I will write soon with another story and perhaps an update on how my study of the scroll is going. Oh, this might be the turn of the tide in the Groundhog War. All the more reason to study. Till then.